Hey guys, today I will be showing you how to replace the battery on an iPhone 6G. Now remember, there are 4 different models of iPhone 6. This one being the first generation of iPhone 6 that came out along with the iPhone 6 Plus, and later on the iPhone 6s and 6s Plus were released, making a total of 4. Remember, we're going to be working on the first generation of iPhone 6. Now there are a few things that you guys need to keep in mind, mainly your workstation. You want to make sure your workstation is clean, organized. You want to stay away from any rugs, any tablecloths, anything that could cause static electricity, as we are trying to avoid any damages that could occur to your device. Second, your tools. The tools that you see here are provided inside of your kit, but we are only showing the ones that will be used for this specific repair. Starting here, we have a pentalobe screwdriver. Now this screwdriver is used to remove both of the screws located by the charging port in order to gain access into the device. Next, we have a Phillips head screwdriver, which will be used to remove a few Phillips head screws located inside of the device in order to remove the battery and the display from this device. Next, we have a plastic spudger. This will be used to basically safely disconnect the connections from the screen and from the battery. Here we have a pair of tweezers. Now the tweezers, we mainly use them to pick up any small components like screws or any parts from the device that we can't pick up with our bare hands. But in this occasion, we might use the round edge of the handle to actually pry the battery in case if the adhesive strips that are attached to the battery and the device, if they do tend to break. So in case if they do break, we're going to be using the round edge of the tweezers to actually pry the battery out of the device. Here we have the suction cup pliers. Now these pliers are used to separate the screen from the device after we remove both of the screws located by the charging port. They are extremely easy to use and extremely handy to open your device. Here we have this adhesive. Now this adhesive is going to be used in place of the one that is already inside of the device. Since we're going to be removing the battery, we have to remove the adhesive along with it. So we're going to be using this one to basically attach the battery onto the device, so we'll have no play after the battery has been reinstalled. Here we have this adhesive film. Now this film is only going to be used if your screen is broken. Since the glass is cracked, basically we're trying to minimize the chances of injury, like cutting yourself. And the other reason to use this is air could seep in through the cracks. So while we're using the suction cup pliers, we want to make sure that we maintain the suction necessary to pry the screen out of the frame. Finally, on this side we have this box. Now this box is the box where our entire kit comes in. We're going to be using this to keep track of all of our screws, parts, anything that we remove from the device, we're going to be placing inside of here to keep track of them. Like I said, basically we want to make sure that we do not install the screws incorrectly, as we will be running the chance of damaging the device if we were to do so. Alright, so the first step in any repair is always to shut off your device. Now we have an iPhone 6 here. We're going to go ahead and press the power button for 5 seconds until we have the icon show up on the screen. Slide to power off. In this instance, you will go ahead and slide the icon, power off your device. If your screen is broken or is badly broken that you cannot see your display or actually use the touch, you're going to go ahead and reset your device, pressing the power button and the home button for 5 seconds until you see any lighting or image disappear. Let's go ahead and do so. There we go. Now, after you shut off your device, you want to make sure that you do not touch the power button, as this will restart your device, and we are trying our best to work with the powered off device. Okay, next step. Now this step only if your screen is broken. You're going to go ahead and install the adhesive film over your screen. You're going to go ahead and remove the paper backing. You're going to align it with the beginning of your display, which is right above your home button. You're going to attach it there, and after you do so, you're going to get your plastic spudger and you're going to guide it above the decal to ensure that you have a bubble-free install. But since ours is not broken, we won't be using this. Alright, after you install that, you will be removing both of the pentalobe screws. Let's go ahead and move on to that. We have both of the pentalobe screws by the charging port. We're going to remove both of them, and every single time that we remove a screw will be placed inside of the box to ensure that we don't lose them or mix them up. Alright, as you see, I've created a group inside of my box. This is telling me that these two screws go together or basically near each other. Alright, so now that we have removed both of the pentalobe screws, let's go ahead and use our suction cup pliers to separate the screen from our device. We're going to go ahead and align the front and the back suction cup. If you are using the adhesive film, you're going to place this suction cup above the screen after the beginning of your adhesive. Now go ahead and press on the suction cups to create the suction necessary, and then firmly press on the handle to separate the display. Now remember, you still have your screen attached to your device with the flex cables inside of the device, so make sure you do not try to remove the screen just yet. Go ahead and remove your tool, place that aside, and now we are able to open our display to a 90-degree angle, and here we will see where we'll be working on. This here is the EMI shield. We're going to remove this in order to disconnect the cables coming from the screen. I know we're going to be working on the battery, but we need to remove the screen to avoid damaging the cable connections in order to maintain the current screen that we have. Alright, so we have a total of 5 screws here. Now none of them are the same size, so you want to make sure you keep track of them, and then you want to make sure that you reinstall these in the same location that you remove them from. So we're going to create the same pattern that they are actually attached to the device. We're going to replicate it on the table here. Now let's go ahead and begin removing the screws. Here you're going to see the difference in sizes. Now the first 4 screws that I'm going to remove, the size is not very different. You won't be able to tell the difference with the naked eye, but they are actually very, very different. Now this top left screw is actually where you start seeing the difference. It's actually longer than the other ones. And finally the top right. Now this one you won't be able to miss the difference, as it's actually extremely long compared to the rest. You want to make sure that they all go exactly where you removed them from. Now using the tweezers, go ahead and pick up the EMI shield, place it inside of your box, and I will be placing the screws right next to the opening that I removed them from, just so I can remember exactly where they belong. Now if you guys, like I said, if you guys have a pen or a marker, this will be the perfect time for you guys to write any notes or anything that would help you differentiate the screws. Alright, so now that we removed the EMI shield, it's time to move on to disconnecting the flex cables coming from your display. We have a total of 4, and the one that you see here on top is for your front camera, your speaker, and your proximity sensor. So let's go ahead and insert the tip of the spudger to the left of the flex, right beneath the metal plate, and gently pry it up like so. Now go ahead and move that out the way. Now we're going to do the L-shaped one, which is actually your home button. Same process, underneath the flex and gently pry it up. Here we have your LCD cable. This one is for your display. Same thing, coming from the left side. Gently pry it up. Now if you follow this process, it'll be extremely simple to disconnect all the cables. Here this is your digitizer. This is the cable that controls your touch. Alright, so now that we have disconnected all the cables, we are able to place our screen aside. Now there's something that you guys need to keep in mind is your cable connections here. The cables on the screens are extremely delicate. You want to make sure that you keep them straight at all times. You do not want to fold them, even when you're going to install them onto the device once more. So let's go ahead and place the screen aside, keep it safe. We're going to move on to the battery. Now the battery has another metal plate covering the connector for it. We have 2 screws. Now these 2 screws are different sizes once again, so make sure that when you actually remove them, you create that guide that you created for the EMI shield as well. So I'm going to go ahead and be placing the screws inside of the box, and when I remove both of them, I will remove the plate, and I'm going to go ahead and place the plate in the same manner that was inside of the device, just for me to be able to ensure that I know and remember where the 2 screws belong. Alright, so now we actually see the connector that we're going to be disconnecting here, which is this one on the left side. Using the tip of the spudger, once again, you're going to insert it beneath the actual flex. And you're going to gently pry it up, like so. Then you're going to move the flex out the way. Once you disconnect the cable, we have these two black strips right here, which are actually your adhesive. So we're going to be peeling these off of the battery using the tip of your spudger once again. Peel both of them. Alright, so now the next step, it's not the easiest step, but it's quite simple. All you have to do is grab onto these tabs one at a time, and you're going to start pulling on the adhesive on an outward motion. What you're trying to achieve here is pull the whole adhesive strip from under the battery until you know that the whole adhesive strip came off. If it does break, which it does tend to happen often, don't worry about it, as we will be using the tweezers to pry the battery out of the device. And that's only if the adhesive does break, like it just did now. Move on to the second strip. Alright, so both of the strips broke. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use the actual tweezers. I'm going to use the round edge on the handle. I'm going to insert it in between the battery and the frame for the device. And I'm gently going to pry this out of the device. All I'm trying to do is create a gap big enough for me to be able to lift this up with my actual fingers. Okay, there we go. Alright, so like I said, you're just trying to create a gap where you could stick your finger underneath, like so. And then we're going to pry this off by hand. So go ahead and lift it up. And then here you have your battery. We're going to be placing this aside. Here we have our new battery. Now, before we install this battery, what we want to do is we want to properly create the fold for the cable. So what you're going to do is you're going to connect your battery. So just align the flex with the connector, move it side to side until you feel it drop into the socket, and then gently press down on it. Now we're going to use the flat end of our spudger here. You're going to hold the connector down. You're going to gently press down in between the battery and the cable. What you're trying to achieve here is a U type of bend. So just gently press down on it. And then you're going to start pinching the cable in between the battery and the motherboard. So basically, like so. Alright, once you actually have done that, go ahead and using the tip of the spudger once again, disconnect the connector, lift off the battery, and here we have our U-bend for the cable. Make sure that you do not flatten this out. The cables being extremely delicate also applies to the battery, not only the screen. Now, we have the battery ready to be installed. Now we're going to use our adhesive here to basically, we're going to place it in the cavity where the battery goes. Just peel the whole thing from the paper backing. Alright. Place it in the middle. Make sure that it's nice flat. Make sure that everything has no bubbles in it. Nice and adhered on there. Now we're going to use the tip of our spudger or the flat side, whichever one is easier for you. You're going to start peeling off the paper backing for the adhesive once again. All right, place this aside on both sides. Now there are some cutouts on here. Also going to peel the paper backing for these. All right. One more. There we go. So place those all aside. Next step is we're going to reconnect the battery connector once again. So align it onto the socket, make sure that it drops in place, and then gently press down. Once again, try to pinch the cable in between the battery and the motherboard, and then just drop the battery in place. Press down on it to make sure that it's adhered onto the adhesive. Once we have done this, we're going to go ahead and reinstall the plate that covers the battery connector. So go ahead and pick it up from your box, place it on top of the battery connector like so. Now as you notice, one of the sides is actually lower than the other one. This side is always going to be to the right of the device, and that one is going to house the shorter screw. So let's find the smaller screw from the set, align it onto the tip of the screwdriver, and then install it. Now when you're installing any screws inside of the device, you want to make sure that you do not over tighten them, so when your screwdriver stops turning, that's as far as you go. Moving on to the second screw, same thing. I'll pinch it in between my fingers, align it onto the tip of the screwdriver, and install it where it belongs. Alright, so we have reinstalled the battery on this device. Next step is to reinstall our screen. So here we have our screen once again. Like I said, make sure you're careful with the cables. Make sure you do not bend them. Now, we're going to move the first three cables out of the way. And we're going to leave only the digitizer cable, which is the one all the way in the bottom. And what we're going to do is align it onto the socket as best as possible. Remember, you're holding your screen approximately at a 90-degree angle. So align it to the socket, move it side to side. Once you feel it drop, you gently press down until you feel or hear the click on both sides. Once you have connected the first one, the rest of the cable should be fairly easy to align. So let's go ahead and move on to the LCD. Same process, align it onto the socket, move it side to side, and gently press down when you're sure that it's aligned into the socket. Next, here we have the home button. Now this one is not as rigid as the other one, so it's a little bit harder to connect, but following the same procedure, just align it to the socket and gently press down on it. Now this one feels kind of spongy when you actually connect it, so you most likely won't hear or feel the click. And finally, we have our front camera. Follow the same procedure for the rest, align it and gently press it down like so. Okay, so we have connected all the cables for our device. Next step is to reinstall the EMI Shield to protect these cables. So what we're going to do is grab the EMI Shield, place it on top of the cables. Now we have both of the openings on the bottom aligned with the threading for the screw. Go ahead and pick up the screws that go on the bottom, align it onto the tip of your screwdriver, and then we're going to install them. Remember, do not over tighten any of the screws. When your screwdriver stops turning, that's as far as you go. Remember not to mix up any of these screws. Always install them exactly where you remove them from. So make sure that the guide that you make inside of your box is accurate. Here we have the top left screw, which is actually longer than the rest, going on the top left. And the top right, which is longer than all of them, going on the top right. Remembering not to over tighten the screws. You're done with connecting your display. Now that you have reinstalled the EMI Shield, we're able to seal our device. So what we're going to do is, lowering your screen in an angle, you're going to align the top of your display with the top of your device. Slide it in place, making sure that it's nice and flush. Once you ensure that it's flush, you're going to go ahead and hold the top Give it some tension from the bottom towards the top, lower it as close as possible, and then run your finger along the sides to sit the clips in place. Once everything is nice and flush, we're going to go ahead and reinstall both of the pentalobe screws. Go ahead and pick both of them up, place them in our device here, and then after I have installed both of them, I'm going to go ahead and tighten them. Now you want to be as careful as possible, especially with the screws outside, as these are the ones that grant you access into your device. So make sure that you don't over tighten them. Okay, so we have reinstalled the battery on our device. So now what we're going to do is we're going to boot the device. Meanwhile it's turning on, we're going to go ahead and press the power button and home button for 5 seconds to perform a hard reset. Let's go ahead and do that now. Our Apple should disappear, and then it will reappear in a few seconds. Once it reappears, you can let go of the buttons. You have just performed a hard reset onto your device. We're gonna wait for the device to boot up. You're gonna charge your device, make sure that it charges properly, and if everything has actually gone well, then you have successfully replaced the battery on an iPhone 6. But before we go, guys, make sure that you dispose of your old battery properly. Look up the nearest center in your city to dispose of rechargeable batteries, and make sure that you actually dispose of them there. Okay, so that's it for the video, guys. Thank you.